we are starting to see the Democrats, you start to mobilize and at least, try and draw attention to what's going on and indicate that it's wrong, right? The Democrats are going to hold the floor for the full 30 hours that they can, trying to slow down Russell Vought's confirmation as OMB head. They won't be able to stop it. They don't have the votes, but they can draw attention to like, hey, this guy's a problem. His whole strategy, the Project 2025 strategy of traumatizing federal workers is what we're seeing in part now. And it's important. It's important for protests like this out in front of the Treasury. And here's Ilhan Omar calling out Trump and Elon Musk for essentially deciding that we no longer have a Congress that appropriates funds.
What Trump and Elon and all of their cronies are trying to do is take away the constitutional power of Congress. We get to decide. We have the power of the purse. We get to decide where money is allocated, and it's the executive's power to make sure that that money gets to where it needs to get. When we talk about civil servants being let go, what we are talking about is not saving money. It's essentially saying they can get paid while they're home and their work doesn't get done on behalf of the American people. Right. It is us, taxpayers, who are being ripped off. That's right. It is us, taxpayers, who are not getting the resources that we paid into. So I ask the American people, do you want people at home and getting a paycheck and not providing services to you? The answer is no. Do you want the executive making the only decisions in this country, or do you want the elected representatives that you sent to Washington making those policies? I am exceptionally upset about U.S. aid. I lived in a refugee camp for 4 years as a child surviving civil war. It is the essential programs that U.S. aid provided that kept my family and I fed and safe. It is the resources that so many people around the world rely on. And it is our soft power. Oftentimes, people interact with our country through the military. That does not create love for us, and it certainly does not keep us safe. When the world interacts with Americans through programs that provide essential need, they get to see the heart and compassion of the American people. That's right.
So I was on Francesca Fiorentini's show, The Bitchuation Room, and she played that video, a little bit of it, with me yesterday. And it just resonated with me because yesterday we were having conversations about, like, what's the best way to communicate what Musk is trying to do right now, even on the U.S. aid issue. I think she's the perfect person to make that case, because even if there's more complications with U.S. aid, I don't think right now is the right time to make the case about its role in, destabilizing governments overseas. But there are good things that it does, and she talks about it there. And like, what should American power look like? China gets it. They're helping with infrastructure across Africa at this current moment to build up that soft power. But increasingly, the United States has become a brute military force in the way that it purely engages with people in the global South. And like, that's all. And she's saying, what do you want American perception to be? And idealizing it in a way that, like, again, it's not necessarily exactly what reality is, but it's what we should strive for ideally anyway. And then, of course, the part at the beginning where she's essentially making the case that every Democrat should be making right now. You're getting ripped off. A billionaire is coming into government and deciding that, like, we're going to shut it down. And are you getting your taxes back? Have you seen the check in the mail? Because for every day that Musk disrupts the functioning of the federal government, that is a billionaire coming into your pocket and taking cash out of it. Because if your taxes aren't going to the functioning of the government, where are they going towards? And I just thought she did such a great job. She's, one of our best members of Congress, but it's like, I hope that more Democrats take lessons from that as opposed to the Chuck Schumer, we will fight, it's like, let's make a positive case in the contrast, which is Pritzker's been doing a really good job of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Musk coup. I think that's the easiest way to frame it. And again, like the USAID stuff, I think if it was more of the really benevolent things, which Ilhan obviously mentions, it'd be probably a little bit easier to defend this moment. But the thing is about even folks who think it's like a step forward against covert action overseas, I think this is more of a privatization of those things and making them go underground. And I also say the extent that we would actually address that stuff should be through the Senate doing something like the Church Committee, which is how we know about COINTELPRO, MK Ultra, all the assassinations, Project Mockingbird, the CIA influence in the media. But instead, we're getting this simulation of all of that stuff, which is what the Twitter files was, which is simulation of a sort of like whistleblower type of leak. This is all simulated.
This is the problem with the this is analogous to, if not exactly the problem, of like just sort of like vague anti-corruption and vague anti-establishment feelings and vague anti-imperialistic things. Because like if you do not maintain the fundamental sort of like democratic process in which we have a transparent funding or defunding of an agency, if you're not willing to put that before just a vague notion of like, I don't like this agency, so I'm happy Elon Musk, and you can be happy that an agency goes away. If Elon Musk was to go in and destroy the U.S. military, it wouldn't happen, of course.
Yeah,
but that's sort of the point.
Yeah.
You can be happy about it, but in terms of like advocacy and in terms of what you need to maintain, you need to first hold the process. Now, the problem is that generally people don't care about the process. And so, having Ilhan Omar up there, having to promote the good things that USAID does, even if some people think, well, that's just the cover,
right.
so that we can do the nefarious things, right? Like, vaccinations are good, but we use them to go to Pakistan, and we use them as a way of like sussing out where Osama bin Laden is or something, like, that becomes it's just not the moment to have that fight, because what are you going to say when they come from the Department of Education? What are you going to say when they come from, they come for Medicare, or when they come for the EPA? Or the FDA, whatever it is. That's the problem. My brain hurts says not vague, performative, aka kabuki.
Yeah, and also trying to get every country in Europe and also Canada like to up their military spending is also a key initiative of this administration that is supposedly about cutting the deep state.
It's really not. And frankly, it's not seeing the forest for the trees if we're saying that this is the opportunity to attack USAID, because right now we don't have the ability to pick and choose, frankly, in that way, and like we don't have the leverage to make that case at this moment. I think it's more about providing an alternative vision as opposition, which requires like thematic consistency and some overarching vision that isn't about getting lost in this kind of conversation. Hold on. And the humanism that Ilhan Omar is pushing there, I think, is the way that the Democrats can make that positive vision, and not like honestly, like the Chris Murphy thing of this is going to hurt us with China. I mean, stupid. Give me a break.
Fuck out of here.
Old Chomsky says, USAID is an intrinsically undemocratic agency. We should pick and choose our battles and what agencies we want to support. But understand, the question is, do you support agencies?
Yep.
And then the question is, if yes, if you don't support the idea that Congress needs to set up agencies, then fine. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Or if even this was the way to get rid of USAID, if you wanted to, it would be through a process where you're looking into all the things you want to look into using Senate investigative
And so
power.
then the question is, if you do not support the ability of a billionaire, the richest man on the earth, to walk in and say like, well, I paid for Trump, so I get the keys to the government. If you don't support that, then the question just becomes one of tactics. What's the best way to make this case? One could be, hey, this is problematic because it's not the way that we do things, even though the agency is garbage. Or the other one is to say to the American public, this agency is good and they're going to destroy it. Because I got news for you. At the end of the day, they're not going to be able to prevent him from destroying it. And two, in the event that it was to sort of get remade, it's not going to get remade in the way you want it to unless there's a process.
Yeah, and also I think that, just a general defense of USAID, like when people are getting pulled off medicines or food, like that stuff is going to have massive impacts on human beings, and that is worth publicizing.
Yeah, That's what Omar's saying.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.